to go ahead and start recording. And I think we're recording here. Let's see. Okay, yes, we are. So we're good to go. So if you've not been to Breakfast with an Expert before, this is a no-cost educational event that PWLiving puts on as part of the goal and the mission to present meaningful educational events that support quality of life in Prince William area. So we have these every month, so keep an eye out for them. There'll be different topics that you can attend, and what you get out of them are basically things that you can come away with to take actionable movements to improve your own business or organization. Basically, you get homework. So I'll leave you with some homework today. Okay, and today we are going to talk about bios with style. And if you've ever had to write a bio, you might realize that it is sometimes difficult to write about yourself, especially when you're writing about yourself in the third person. Now, if you've written fiction before, that can be a lot of fun. It can be a challenge. It's kind of like writing a book, and you're the main character. But for most people, it's a bit of a stretch. And there's all kinds of stuff that goes on in your head when you have to write a bio. Do I need to be, humble? Do I, is this bragging? Is this the right thing? Am I trying to be funny? So we're going to go through that, the different kinds of approaches and the different kinds of bios and how you handle each situation. So the first thing is, why would you need a bio? Okay, so obviously, authors, if you're a writer, you need a bio. Social media, you need a short bio or a short profile. You need bios if you're going to be on a website, other professional reasons. Sometimes it's, you're being introduced as a speaker and you're asked to be, present your own bio for someone else to read. So there's all different situations, and in each situation, your bio is going to be customized. So it's not really a one size fits all, although you can start with a main bio and then take pieces of it and rework it for the different scenarios that require a bio. All right, so general tips. The first thing is, usually you are writing in the third person unless otherwise specified. And I say otherwise specified because what happens is you go into like LinkedIn, and LinkedIn for a summary usually requires first person. And everyone's like, okay, well, I'm used to, I'm used to having to write in third person. Now what do? I have everything written in third person. So in that case, you have to just, you just have to rework it into first person. But LinkedIn is sort of a beast of its own. Obviously, if you're introducing yourself as a speaker, you're going to be using first person. So the next thing is, remember, this is a bio and not an autobiography. So it's not a memoir. So it's really important to pick out the most important details of the bio of what you're going to present. And that is very audience specific. We'll talk a little bit about what the audience looks like, and we'll talk about what kind of details you will pick out for that particular audience. Mostly we want verifiable facts, okay? So sometimes you'll see bios where you'll see, Katherine Gotthardt is a writer and she hopes to write a book someday. That's nice, but it doesn't really say much about Katherine Gotthardt. It doesn't say what my accomplishments have been or what I'm actually doing. It really doesn't give any much information. In fact, in a situation like that, it might make it look like, oh, okay, that's nice. She hopes to do that. What have you really been doing? Nothing. So it can actually detract from the credibility. So you want to make sure that you're sticking to the facts that people can actually look up, almost like a resume. You do want to include your relevant education and experience. So, if you've got experience in the nonprofit sector and you have, a degree in business, and you're applying your degree in business in the nonprofit sector, that might be kind of interesting. So maybe you want to say, has a degree in business, has been applying it in the nonprofit sector by, managing fundraisers and finances, something to that effect. That name drop your memberships and volunteer positions, because volunteer positions add quite a bit in terms of how people view your well-roundedness. So even if this is a work-related bio, you want to make sure that people know that you're doing things outside of work. And a lot of things that we do outside of the workplace really impact what we're doing in the workplace, because maybe we're exploring a passion that's a little bit different, and that adds to the depth that we bring to the workplace. Maybe you work for, as a volunteer for a national organization, that's a great experience. So go ahead and, use those names. If you're working for the American Heart Society, make sure you put that down. And you're going to be putting your, what kind of positions and what kind of work you do there. And all of that said, we're going to be keeping the writing tight, meaning we will need to make sure that there are no extra words in there. And this gets really difficult, because what I've seen is that folks either go in one direction where it's extremely short because they don't know what to say, or it's way too long. So it's kind of, you need to hit that sweet spot where you're getting in all the verifiable information and you're making an impact, but you're not going overboard and, writing your life story. Does anyone have any questions right now? I can take you off mute if you do. Let's see. Anyone have any questions? I think I just unmuted you all. There we go. Okay, we'll continue on.
Not at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so let's talk about social media bios. So, we know that there's different social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram are some of the big ones. Each one of those has the own required length. And so the first thing you need to know is, how long are they going to let you, talk about yourself or your organization in your social media profile? And the first thing I want to add a caveat is that it's really important that you fill out your social media profiles for your business, especially because people do read them and they want to know who you are. Whether they already know you before, it's important for other people to read how you describe yourself, how you perceive yourself as a business, and what you offer. So make sure you fill these out. And it's going to be a little bit of work because you have to tailor each one. So use hashtags wisely when possible. So like Instagram, you can actually have hashtags in your bio, and you can use those to your advantage so that you are more searchable on the platform that you're using. I think Twitter also lets you use hashtags in your bio. You're going to just get the basics in when it's really short. If you've got a really succinct, name of your organization and a mission statement and how you accomplish it, and if you can mush all that into like one sentence into Twitter's like 240 characters, or I think that's what they want for their bios, that's great. That's really what you're trying to do, is get the basics in. So it's great if you can add some flair to it, and we can talk a little bit how to do that without adding words. But mostly what you're trying to do is just communicate the essentials. Again, amusing is good sometimes, but always have someone else read your bio, because what you find amusing, other people might not find amusing. I just wrote a bio the other day and I was being snarky, and someone took it as like, wow, you just came off like really strong and offensive. And I was like, wow, really? I mean, that's, and I'm a writer, and I have to have people read my stuff, because you don't know always how you're coming off to your audience. So just be really cognizant of that as you're writing your bio. And put it through the test. So I don't know if we have any book authors here, but if you are writing a book, or you're thinking about writing a book, or even if you're writing, an ebook or a white paper or something like that, that you're using as a giveaway for your business or organization, here's some basics. Okay, so first of all, you don't want to be boring. I've read some bios where they just go kind of on and on and on and on and on. And one of the things that makes a bio boring is lots and lots of acronyms. For one thing, and I see this a lot sometimes, in the government or the military, some of the IT sectors. Everything is an acronym. First of all, a lot of people don't know what those acronyms mean, and so if you are trying to appeal to a wider audience, you want to kind of avoid that. And it's really hard for a reader to just read acronyms. If you've ever tried to do it, you know that it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just overwhelmed with all these letters, and what the heck do they mean? So, and then choose the facts that your readers will care about. So, again, writing is always going to be about your audience when you're doing this kind of writing, and appealing to your audience and making sure that your bio, in this case, is being impactful, and that you're making some kind of a meaningful footprint as they read your bio, and they're going to remember you. Sounds smart, not snotty. There's a snarky sort of addition to this, but sometimes the tone that people take in their bios ends up sounding like they're talking down to their audience. And the way that happens is, if they're using extremely academic verbiage, or you're putting out there that you went to an Ivy League school, and you're using academic verbiage, and you're using acronyms, you put it all together, what happens is that it distances you from your reader, and people can perceive that as very off-putting. And so again, it depends on who your audience is. In some arenas, you need to sound, highly educated, or you need to sound, extremely professional. And how do you do that without being off-putting? So it's a really hard balance to take, and it's going to take several revisions probably to get to that sweet spot. But book author bios, again, even if it's just like, white paper, an ebook, or something like that, include your publications. Make sure that people know, what else you've got out there. And if you've got a lot, name drop the big ones and generalize the rest. So, if I've written for PWLiving and the Washington Times, and I've got 3 books out, I'm going to, name those 2. I'm going to name my most popular books, and the rest I'm just going to say, has been published in numerous journals and has published, 6 books, something like that. So name drop the very important ones. And you don't want to name drop everything, because if you do, then you're getting back into that whole long list thing, and then you get back to number 1, which is kind of, don't be boring. Okay, website bios. These are really important if you're a guest blogger, you're a business owner, member of a professional team, a page owner on a larger website. And let me talk about this last one, the page owner of a larger website or network sites. A lot of times I will see, realtors, or people who are in multi-level marketing, people who are franchise owners. You only get a section of the website. So in that case, you're still going to have to write a bio. And the hard part about that is you don't have your own space. So you're trying to distinguish yourself from the rest of the folks that are out there. So that can be almost trickier than if you've got your own website and you're introducing yourself as a business owner, or say, the CEO or the president of an organization. So if any of this describes you, first of all, you want to know how long your bio should be, especially if you are on somebody else's website. And if they don't know, or they're very vague, see what other people have written. and go for the medium. So, someone has 2 lines and someone has 2 paragraphs, go for the paragraph, and you're probably safe. And then choose, it's okay to model, choose the best models that work for you. What kind of language appeals to you, since you work in that industry or you're in that sector. What words really strike you, and look at the way that they're formulating the sentences. What kind of verbs are they using? And then, do the same thing, do what they're doing. Obviously you're not going to copy them, but it's okay to look at something as a model and say, I like this, this, and this, and I'm going to apply it to my own work. So we have other professional bios. Okay, we can use them for other reasons, job or school applications, professional papers, online directories, boilerplates. Boilerplates are basically like if you're writing a series of articles or a series of blogs, you're going to be having the same biographical information at the bottom of each one. You'll see them on press releases also, usually about the organization itself. Introductions for speeches we talked about. The range can go from 1 sentence to 1 page, and it is always safer to err on the side of seriousness. We talked about that, whether or not something would be funny to you might not come off as funny to somebody else. So I'm going to unmute you all. If anyone has any questions at this point, please let me know. We also have a chat, and we do have a chat function on the side. So let's see if I can see it over here. Yeah. Oh, I see something in chat. Okay. Okay, good. Somebody said I can hear you. I'll leave this open. That would be helpful, huh? If you have a question or something, go ahead and shoot that out. Okay. So here's some more tips. Okay, so we just talked about language and what kind of language you're going to use and whether or not you're attracted to a particular kind of style. A lot of the things that really attract people are action verbs. Okay, so instead of saying, Katherine Gotthardt is the editor-in-chief of PWLiving magazine, how can I make that a little bit more powerful with an action verb? So a lot of times you'll see people, use the word serves. This is a really important verb, especially if you're in the nonprofit world, if you're doing something philanthropically, you serve as a particular function. If you go to some LinkedIn profiles, you'll see folks saying, bring, John Smith brings 16 years of experience to the government contracting arena. And that's a little more concrete than using, your is, are, was, were kind of loosey-goosey, abstract verbs. Pay attention to tone. Again, sometimes you come off snarky and you don't mean to come off snarky. Rebecca told me before, she said, because so I'm on Facebook and I'm legitimately asking somebody a question because I honestly do not know the answer. And she said, when you come off like that, it sounds like you're being sarcastic. And I'm like, no, I really don't know. So I'm asking the question. Of course, it's Facebook, so you can't, I don't know, having an in-depth conversation sometimes is difficult. So, but pay attention to tone, because people do take your words in a different way. And everything that you write online and on paper is going to take on a meaning of its own for the reader. And it's always stronger. So if you want to come off softer, you have to really work at it to come off softer. If you want to, it's a lot easier to come on stronger on anything online, especially, exclamation marks are a big one. Caps, you want to avoid that kind of thing, especially, in your online bios. Vary your sentence length, okay, if you can, because long drawn out sentences, one after another, starts to get boring, but it also gets very convoluted, and you're going to capture people's attention more if you are, have some short, medium, long sentences. So break those sentences up and throw in a long one every now and then. Use imagery. Imagery is, if you've ever studied it, it's basically using the senses. So it's using words that bring images or feelings, something that, appeals to our sensory nature. We're all human, and the senses, that's how we experience the world. So as much as you can bring in the senses, um, and paint a picture in your bio, that it just becomes more important. We talked about someone as, serving as opposed to is. So, that presents an image, someone actually going out and doing something for somebody else. And that plays into your tone also. If you use the word, give, or people say, like, brings to the table. Brings to the table, I bring to the table 16 years of experience. That sounds a little more, it's concrete, it's straight, it's to the point, but it doesn't sound the same as serves. So really get down into that word level and think about how you're using your words and what are the right words. At the end, I can send you out a link. We have a column that's called Your Words Mean Business, and there's all kinds of content marketing information on there. It's on the PWLiving site, and one of the pieces on there is about word choice. Answer unspoken questions. Okay, so you've got to kind of get into your reader's head. If you say, okay, yeah, I worked at government contracting agency in Northern Virginia. Okay, but what industry you were in? That's kind of vague. Now, sometimes, you can't be too specific depending on what industry you're in, but try to preempt what somebody's going to ask. Obviously, you can't do that for everything because you have to, limit how much information you're giving, but the obvious ones, your who, what, where, when, why, how, go back to the sort of basic newspaper questions. And then again, test your bio on real audiences. So, in writing, we call these beta readers. Get people to look at your bio and give you feedback. And, don't get someone who like completely adores you and will just say like anything because they like love you and they already know you. Try to get some, some maybe like colleagues or even people that don't know you very well, but that you're comfortable enough to say, hey, could you read this, and give me some feedback. If you have other, if you get into a writing group or something like that, they can give you feedback on that kind of thing. Okay, so now here's a quiz. I'm going to get rid of the chat here for 1 second. And just to take a few minutes, I want you to kind of look at this. And when I say which is the best bio for a professional writer, it could be any kind of writer. You could be, when you're writing your white papers and you are writing your ebooks and your handouts, you're all writers. So kind of think about that as you're choosing the best bio here, and we'll go over it in a second. That's a good, so Amanda so the second one is the best. We have a vote for the second. We have a vote for the last. Go ahead and put your vote in chat. That's probably the best thing. Depend on where it's going to be, because 2 would work well also. Okay, so we can go over this. So remember some of the key points that we made at the beginning was that you need to be specific, for one thing. You need to name drop. You need to have your education in there. You need to put your volunteerism in there. And you need to answer the unanswered questions. So in the first example, and it needs to be verifiable. So we said John Dunlap III was born and raised in the little town of Kilpatrick, Idaho, where he learned to grow potatoes at an early age. He hopes to own his own potato farm someday. In the meantime, he writes and teaches. So that automatically broke one of the rules. And we said that you need to have verifiable facts. Well, he hopes to own his own potato farm someday. Again, pie in the sky. Okay, that's great. Nice to know your hopes and ambitions, but that doesn't really professionally tell me who you are or add to my impression of you, per se. Second one, John Dunlap III writes regularly for Cowtoon Magazine and other local publications. Holding a master's in agriculture, he serves as an adjunct instructor at Kilpatrick Community College and volunteers at Kilpatrick High School, where he teaches students to grow potatoes. And somebody said that number 2 is the best, and number 2 is the, quote, correct answer. Why? Because very specific, okay? He writes. Writes for what? Writes for Cowtoon Magazine. Now, remember, we also said that if you've got more than one publication, you're going to put the big ones out there and then generalize. So that's what happens in number 2. So writes regularly for Cowtoon and then other local publications, because he's not going to go on and on and on and on. Education, master's in agriculture. Serves as an adjunct instructor at Kilpatrick Community College and volunteers, where he teaches students to grow potatoes. So again, very, very specific. Where do you teach? What do you do? And then we have that language in there that is very specific. So if you look at the top one, he was born and raised, okay, as opposed to this action verb, he writes, he serves, okay, he teaches. So these are all very, very specific verbs that put an image into your head of what he does. Number 3 is not bad. He writes regularly for Cowtoon Magazine and several other publications, holds a master's degree in agricultural science, and occasionally teaches at the local community college. He enjoys growing potatoes and volunteering. So it starts out kind of strong, but then it sort of peters out when you get to occasionally teaches. It's like, okay, well, that leaves the question in mind of how occasional, what community college, and what kind of volunteering is he doing? So there's too many unanswered questions there, although the verbs are strong there. So questions on that. I can unmute everybody. Any questions on any of that? Okay. So I guess I have a question. As you have written your own bios, first of all, what kind of bios have you had to write? And then my second question is what sort of challenges have you discovered as you've had to write your own bios? I mean, I'm assuming that you've had to write your own bios because you're here today. So who wants to jump in?
This is Linda. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I had to recently add my bio to our company website. It was the first time I've had to do an online bio for myself. And I struggled. I think I ended up doing a relatively decent job, but I struggled with length. I struggled with what to include. I didn't want to be up there. I had to have my photo taken, and the whole thing just really,
Uh-huh.
was not my thing. But it is very hard to edit yourself down. I think when it's your own bio, it's even more difficult. Am I correct in that?
Oh no, it
I'm
is.
much better at writing them for other people. You can go
Yep.
to other websites and see what other, CEOs, VPs, what they all look like. But when it came to my own, I really struggled.
Oh yeah, you are so not alone in that. That's absolutely. It's like you've got to, when you're doing it, you almost like have to step back and write it like you don't know the person. So, and that can be really hard to do if you haven't done that kind of writing before.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, it's like fiction writing in a way. It's like I'm writing about myself. Okay.
And somebody mentioned, will you do resumes for yourself? But that's a totally separate animal.
Yes. Yes. It is. It's straightforward. A lot of times you already have the verbiage for a resume, because it's like you've got a job description. It's like,
Right.
okay, plunk that in there and just kind of tailor that so you have something to start with. Um, and certainly you can start with your resume because you're going to be able to pick out some of the most important information that you want to include if you have a resume. But it's going to be a lot different because you're not going to be getting into the nitty gritty of, your
Oh,
bless you.
thank you. Sorry.
Um, Chanel said, how to sound professional and knowledgeable and relatable in 140 characters. No kidding, right? Thanks, Twitter. Appreciate and get the hashtags in there, by the way. So it is really hard to do that. And what I would suggest is, first of all, write several different versions, like just like the example we just had a minute ago. Write several different versions and put it away for a while. Put it away for a couple of days. And then pick it up again and reread them before you even, put anything down. After you reread them and pick your favorites, give them to somebody else to reread and pick their favorites. And when you're giving it to someone, I said don't give it to someone who adores you. Give it to someone who is also kind of your target audience. So, because those are the people that you're trying to appeal to in business. Those are the people you're trying to appeal to in your nonprofit organizations. Struggled writing bio for resume to change industry, social media bios. I struggle with talking myself up. Yes, that can be a really hard one too, because it's like we want to be humble. We don't want to sound, most of us don't want to sound, snotty, as we said before. So we end up doing the opposite and we totally undermine ourselves. So there has to be a happy medium. And the way that you can usually achieve that is by sticking to the facts. It's like, you're a professional, what you've accomplished. Take a step back, take the emotion out of it and just write down the facts. By putting down the facts like that, you're going to show people, what your expertise is because you're just kind of documenting it at that point. As soon as you start to think to yourself, oh my gosh, I have to make myself sound good, then you're just walking into this like mire of, of self-loathing, because what you're going to find is no matter what you say, you're not going to be happy with it. So start with the facts. And then when you look at the facts, you're like, oh, I really do look professional. I look great on paper. So then you go back and you start editing it. What else we got? I don't know I think we're still muted. Now it says everyone's unmuted. Okay. Okay, well, again, we do this every month, and I would be happy to answer questions. Writing bios is something that we do for clients through PWLiving, through our content marketing services. And so we can, help you set up your social media profiles. We can help you with LinkedIn, anything like that. I like to do them. I think they're a lot of fun because I get to interview people and learn about some interesting people. And sometimes it's just, and sometimes it's a matter of, folks hand in a bio of what they already have and say, please, just work with this. Because I've got the basics down here, but I need a little bit more objectivity. And that's where, another writer can actually really help you because they're giving you that objectivity. And they're doing it from a space of being a writing professional too. It's kind of hard sometimes. You can get a really good reader and they can say, this really isn't resonating correctly, but they can't really tell you what that means. So in which case you need to go find another beta reader or another test audience for that. But if you have any questions, I think my email's on here. Wait a minute. There we go. Let me get that out of the way. You can email Rebecca, or you can email me at PrinceWilliamLiving.com, and we can set up a time where we can talk a little bit about how we can support your mission, or if you just have a question for me about this presentation, feel free to shoot me an email. And I appreciate everybody coming today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this glorious day. It looks like we're going to get sun, so I'm very happy. How do we access the recording? I am going to download this, and then I'm going to work with Rebecca and see where we're going to host it. So I will shoot me an email, and I can let you know how you can access that. I think we might be putting these up on YouTube. I'm not quite sure yet. So, all right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.